Good morning again. When I was growing up, I heard the term mental illness much more often than mental health. There's been a change over the years, but I expect we still hear the first term more often than the second. For decades, the World Health Organization has referred to health in this way: a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. An enviable state indeed. In 1984, that same organization refined the definition, calling health the extent to which an individual or group is able to realize aspirations and satisfy needs, and to change or to cope with the environment. Health is not the objective of living, but a resource for everyday life. Our physical health is challenged by a number of things, of course, many of them internal and beyond our control. Diseases which originate in our genetic heritage, for example, or challenges from the environment that we don't have sufficient knowledge to initiate an adaptation. Other things we do have at least some control over. The deleterious effects of smoking tobacco have been widely known for over 60 years. Ever since 1965, Congress has mandated that every package of cigarettes sold in the United States must have a health warning. And those warnings have become more stark and over the years more blunt. Cigarettes cause cancer. Cigarettes cause strokes and heart disease. Cigarettes cause fatal lung disease. Armed with this knowledge, we can, and many of us do, choose not to smoke. But if you are already a smoker, this intellectual knowledge doesn't provide a complete solution. Addiction is a disorder characterized by a persistent and intense urge to use a drug or engage in a behavior that produces a natural reward despite substantial harm and other negative consequences, as our friends in Wikipedia put it. This example and others which could be cited regarding alcohol, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, fentanyl, and a wide range of other substances illustrates the thin line that exists between physical and mental health. The disturbances that exist in our minds can affect our behaviors in such a way that our physical health is impacted in seriously negative ways. Some might even say that the cravings that lead to compulsions, that lead to addictive behaviors, are indicators of mental illness. Certainly when we act compulsively, we destabilize our mental health. Illness is a departure from health. So mental illness is a departure from mental health. And stated that way, it seems obvious. But unless we're very careful, we're apt to slip into the old formula that we grew up with, that mental illness equates with craziness. The most common form of mental illness in the United States in 2023 is anxiety. According to Advanced Psychiatry Associates, 40 million adults in this country suffer from anxiety. The number of people seeking help for anxiety disorders increased by 93% in just the 9 months between January and September 2020. Primarily, we assume, as an effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, but there was also an insurrection in the Capitol at that time. Of course, many others who suffered from anxiety during this time and during the present time don't enter into the figures because they did not and do not seek treatment. Anxiety is a broad term. It includes generalized anxiety disorder, which is characterized by excessive stress and worry experienced on most days. The symptoms of this common disorder may include racing thoughts, feelings of restlessness, difficulty concentrating, irritability, difficulty sleeping, and muscle tension. Do any of these symptoms feel familiar to you? Panic disorder is another form of anxiety. The symptoms include heart palpitations, a racing heart, shaking, sweating, and feeling out of control. Panic disorder is more common among women than men. A third form of anxiety, experienced by some, is social anxiety disorder. Sufferers struggle with near constant fears of being judged by others and embarrassing themselves in front of others. And this disorder may cause people to avoid social interaction. Depression, as you may have expected, is also one of the most common psychiatric disorders experienced in the United States. Over 17 million adults suffer from a major depressive disorder, sometimes just a single episode, but often multiple episodes. Almost 2 million children suffer from depression, unfortunately. The symptoms of depression include feeling sad, lonely, and hopeless, and losing interest in activities that once felt pleasurable. Depression can also cause physical symptoms like lack of appetite, lack of energy, back pain. Some people suffer from depression seasonally, a disorder that's become better known in the past couple of decades. And most of us know it as seasonal affective disorder, SAD, although it's also known simply as seasonal depression. I was surprised while conducting research for this sermon to learn that about 15 million people in this country suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That number approaches the number of adults suffering from depression. We often associate PTSD with having served in the military, and in fact, many servicemen and women, unfortunately, return from their tours of duty having been exposed to experiences that our brains are not equipped to assimilate. But trauma is not restricted to military experience. Any trauma can result in PTSD, which is diagnosed if we continue to experience trauma after a month following the initial trauma-inducing incident. Symptoms include intense recollections of the traumatic event or events in the form of flashbacks or nightmares, difficulty concentrating and sleeping, agitation, restlessness, feeling jumpy, and of course, avoiding reminders of the trauma. Anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder are the three most prevalent psychiatric disorders we faced in this country. Bipolar disorder affects 5.7 million of us. Obsessive-compulsive disorder, about 2.2 million. If you think about the symptoms I've listed for anxiety, depression, and PTSD, I think you'll find that most of us have experienced mental illness at one time or another. The other term we've been using, psychiatric disorder, is interesting, isn't it? It implies that there's such a thing as psychiatric order, a state of health with which we would certainly want to align ourselves. The question that emerges then is, how do we achieve psychiatric order? Keeping in mind that health is not a goal in itself, but a resource for everyday life. Well, of course, there's no magic pill that cures anxiety or depression or PTSD. But there are certain behaviors and patterns of behaviors that can help. For anxiety, I have found, and research substantiates, slowing ourselves down, breathing deeply and mindfully helps. Deliberately choosing a relaxed pattern of deep breathing followed by a relaxed pattern of just regular breathing calms the nervous system that controls the body's involuntary functions. Controlled breathing can cause physiological changes that include lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, and reduced levels of stress hormones in the blood, the mind-body connection. Let's try it now. Let's take 3 deep, centering breaths together. The blood pressure lowers, the heart rate slows down. Even the level of stress hormones in the blood gets reduced. Adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine. These chemicals are designed to help us deal with stressful situations by increasing our heart rate, our blood pressure, and blood sugar, glucose levels. They are helpful in situations that require a fight or flight response, but they are counterproductive when there are no such imminent threats. If regular life seems stressful all or much of the time, your body is receiving too much exposure to cortisol and other stress hormones. And too much of anything over too long a time is damaging. We can call this the natural stress system going wild. Long-term activation of the stress response system can disrupt almost all the body's processes. You are put at risk for anxiety, depression, digestive problems, headaches, muscle tension, heart disease, heart attack, high blood pressure, stroke, sleep problems, weight gain, problems with memory and focus. That's a lot of stress on the system. And breathing is a natural and necessary function of the body. Conscious breathing is a gift that's available to us at any time if we slow down enough and remember to avail ourselves of it. Deep, conscious, and well-regulated breathing is a feature of mindfulness meditation, of course, and transcendental meditation, and vipassana meditation, progressive muscle relaxation meditation, and walking meditation. Many varieties to choose from. Consciousness of the movement of the breath is a feature in all of them. The challenge, of course, is to make the time to incorporate a conscious breathing practice, a meditation practice in your life. And the great irony is that the main obstacle folks have to incorporating a meditation practice into their life is the anxiety that they're facing, which encourages us to medicate ourselves with distractions, or the depression, which saps the energy for taking initiative and starting something new. The suggestions for remedies to treat depression and anxiety and other stress disorders are all good, but the illnesses themselves create the obstacles that discourage us from taking the good advice. Eat a healthy diet, get regular exercise, get plenty of sleep. All these things will help, but they all need, as a foundation, a positive outlook, which is what's missing. What we need is a plan, and often what helps with planning is having a partner. Here is where the church can be of help. One of the functions of the minister is to provide pastoral care. It is well within the province of my responsibilities and within the range of my capabilities to sit with you and come up with a plan together that will help you manage the stresses in your life. Members of our pastoral care team can also help in this way. Sometimes people think of the pastoral care team's duties as providing meals and rides when folks are sick, and yes, that falls within their province, but those times are the exceptions rather than the rule. Most times our concerns are more routine, more mundane even. During the 16 years I spent as a case manager, I worked primarily with homeless persons and formerly homeless persons, yes, but there were also elders and people with disabilities. routine conversations dipped into and out of the realm of counseling on a regular basis. If you'd like me to help you with a plan for treating the kind of disorders we've been speaking of, I can do that. Of course, that would mean admitting we can use the help. And sometimes our culture's idolizing of self-reliance gets in the way of that. Spiritual growth means successfully overcoming that kind of thinking. The reason that I chose caring for our mental health today as our topic is plain. The uncertainty that we're facing as a society and as a human family is of a nature and degree we have never had to face before. We crave certainty, and we are willing to adapt to a certain degree of uncertainty, but not the levels at which we are facing these days. Congress has broken down. The House of Representatives is adrift without a leader, so no new laws can get passed. We reel from the threat of government shutdown to the threat of government shutdown every few weeks. The leading candidate for president in one of our two most prominent political parties has been indicted on 91 charges of criminal conduct. Climate change is creating storms and droughts and floods and forest fires like never before. We are not designed to cope with so much stress as individuals. The phrase I've adopted as a mantra this year is connection, relationship, community. This is the way we cope, by coping together. It's the function of church, at least the kind of church that I want and need, to provide opportunities for connecting, forming relationships, and building community. One of the ways we cope with stress is by deep and conscious breathing. The best way to ensure we remember to connect with breath on a regular basis is through a regular meditation practice. The best way to do that is to get together in a group or groups. So I would like to offer that. An opportunity for an in-person meditation practice once or twice or 3 times a week at church. You can let me know if you're interested by signing your name on the sheet in the parlor table and indicating a time that would work for you. If you find at least one good way to deal with the stresses in your life, it may open up a path for additional coping strategies, such as keeping a gratitude journal, investing yourself in a leisure activity, or adding a volunteer opportunity to your life. Of course, some episodes of depression or anxiety, and especially PTSD, may benefit best from professional counseling. And though we can't provide that directly at church, we can certainly point you towards appropriate resources. We read reading number 468 in the Gray Hymnal responsively a while ago. Let's read it together now. Number 468 in the Gray Hymnal. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat when, with encouragement, we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we would come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. Thank you.